I was 20 when I met her. Susan, auburn hair, the kind of laugh that made you feel like the world was okay. We married the same year, bought a little house with squeaky floorboards and dreams in every room. Kids came, 2 boys, then grandkids. 40 years flew by in a blink. Retirement felt like a victory lap. We had made it. Our days were calm, full of old routines, coffee on the porch, Sunday crossword battles, slow dances in the kitchen. She made me believe love could really last. We had our rituals. Every Friday, we'd sit on the porch swing with a glass of wine and talk about the week. Her laugh still lit up the air like it did when we were young. Every now and then, she'd playfully brush her hand against mine, and it reminded me of our early days. There were little surprises, notes left in my lunchbox, my favorite cookies on hard days, spontaneous weekend trips to the mountains. We weren't perfect. We argued about bills, the thermostat, how to fold towels. But it was a good life, a loyal life, built on trust, or so I believed. We had friends who envied our bond. They called us the old lovebirds, still holding hands after 4 decades. Family gatherings were filled with laughter. People looked at us and saw stability, endurance, maybe even hope. We had grown together, weathered storms, buried parents, cried through losses, and celebrated life's little joys. I thought I knew everything about her, every smile, every frown. I could tell her mood from across the room, or so I thought. She knew my morning routine: black coffee, 2 sugars, crossword before 9. I knew hers, humming as she brushed her hair, cinnamon toast with too much butter. We were two halves of a well-worn coin. Predictable, comfortable, maybe too comfortable. Then 2 weeks ago, it all changed. It was a rainy afternoon. She left her phone on the kitchen counter while stepping out to get milk. I never snooped, not in 40 years. But that day, something pulled me toward it. A buzz, a message previewed on the lock screen. Can't wait to see you again. Same place. My heart dropped. I tapped. It opened. No password. There it was. Messages from someone named Mark. Last night was perfect. Still feel your skin on mine. I couldn't breathe. I read message after message. Intimate, passionate. Like the kind of love letters we used to write to each other before texting even existed. She sent him photos of herself, of our home, even of the dinner I cooked the night before. One message said, "I can't stop thinking about you even when he's in the next room." I felt physically ill. I had to sit down. My legs just wouldn't hold me. I sat in my chair for hours, staring at the phone. The woman who held my hand through every funeral and holiday had someone else. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stared. Everything felt like a lie. Our wedding anniversary last month, a lie. The smiles at our grandson's recital, a lie. The kiss she gave me that morning, a lie. She sent him a video of her sitting in the very kitchen where we celebrated our 40th anniversary. She whispered his name with the same voice she once used for me. It wasn't just betrayal, it was erasure. She had taken the life we built together and replaced it, piece by piece, with someone else. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. I was going to watch, listen, wait. Let her hang herself with her own rope, because you don't get to walk away from 40 years without consequences. That night, I lay next to her in bed, pretending to sleep. She turned over, curled into me like she had 1,000 nights before. I held her hand, and in that moment, I felt nothing, nothing at all. The ceiling fan spun slowly above us, like time refusing to move forward. Her breathing was soft, steady, as if nothing had changed, as if she still loved me, as if she hadn't already given herself to another man. But I had changed. I had become someone new, someone who was no longer naive, no longer blind, someone who was ready to reclaim dignity in silence, in strategy. The next morning I went through our old photo albums. I looked at our young faces, full of promise, standing in front of the house we built, the house that now felt like a lie. Every smile she ever gave me suddenly looked suspicious, every memory tainted. I wasn't ready to throw it all away, but I wasn't going to let her destroy me either. I couldn't unsee the messages, couldn't unhear the words, "Your skin on mine," but I didn't act right away. Instead, I smiled when she returned with the milk, acted like nothing had happened. She asked if I wanted soup with dinner. I nodded. My hand shook as I peeled potatoes. That night, while she read her book and sipped her usual chamomile tea, I watched her from across the living room. I studied her face, every blink, every twitch. Was this the same woman who once cried over my broken ankle? Who sat by my side when I lost my father? Who snuck into my office just to leave post-it notes that read, "Still yours"? Or was she already someone else? I needed to know more. I had to be sure. I couldn't let paranoia poison me unless the poison was real. So I called Tom. Tom had been my friend since high school, served in the Marines, did a stint with private security, now ran a quiet little business digging into the dirt people left behind. He owed me more than one favor. "I need your help," I told him. "I'm in," he replied without asking why. The next day, Tom stopped by while Susan was out with her book club. I showed him the phone. He whistled low, read through the thread with the cold eyes of a man who's seen too much. "We'll start with location tracking," he said. "GPS her car, plant a mic. You sure about this?" I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. The next few days were a whirlwind of whispers. Tom installed the tracker. We set up a receiver in my garage. I kept notes, times, patterns. Her behavior didn't change. In fact, she seemed happier, lighter. That stung more than I could admit. She even hummed again while doing the dishes. She baked a pie one night, something she hadn't done in months. She wore perfume on a Tuesday. Not for me. Then on Thursday, she said she was meeting Ellen, her best friend since college, for lunch at a little spot called Howard's Diner. I knew Ellen was out of town. She had told us at last Sunday's BBQ. I didn't say a word. I just smiled, kissed her cheek, and waved as she drove off. 10 minutes later, I watched the blinking dot on the GPS settle into a downtown corner, Howard's Diner. Tom was already there, sipping coffee, camera hidden in his buttonhole. He sent me a picture. My heart stopped. There she was, my wife, sitting in a booth with a man I didn't recognize, middle-aged, tan, slick smile. His hand reached across the table and took hers. Tom didn't stop at photos. He recorded audio. Their voices were clear, laughing, teasing. She called him Captain. He called her Sunshine. My stomach turned. They spoke in code, but not well. Mentions of hotels, weekend trips, private jokes, references to dates and times I remembered being alone, thinking she had a headache or was shopping with friends. One part of the conversation made me grip the armrest so tight my knuckles turned white. Mark. "So when's the old man out of town again?" Susan. "Next month. He has that fishing trip with Robert." Mark. "Perfect. We can finally have the house to ourselves." My house, our house, the one I built with my own hands, where our children took their first steps. That night, I listened to the audio 6 times, every word like a dagger. But what cut deepest? She said, "Sometimes I wish I had met you first. I had given her my youth, my energy, my loyalty, and she wished it had been someone else. I sat in the dark until dawn, no sleep, no tears, just silence. She came home later than usual, said Ellen wanted dessert and extra tea. I nodded, told her the soup was in the fridge. Inside, I was already gone. Later that night, I opened my old army locker. Inside were journals, old letters, my father's fountain pen. I took one of the notebooks and started documenting everything, every conversation, every lie, every movement. I was building a case, not for court, but for truth. This wasn't just infidelity. This was betrayal of the deepest kind, emotional treason, a war declared in whispers. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to break plates or throw clothes out onto the lawn. I was going to get even, but not with rage, with precision, with planning, with grace. Because revenge, true revenge, deserves dignity. The morning after I finished writing in my old journal, I sat on the edge of the bed and watched Susan sleep. I studied her breathing, her relaxed face. How many times had I woken up next to her and never questioned a thing? And now, every breath she took felt like a betrayal. Every gentle exhale was a secret she kept buried deep. I walked outside into the backyard with a cup of black coffee. The air was still heavy with the scent of dew and cut grass. The birds were just beginning to stir. The world didn't know yet that my marriage had died. It felt cruel that everything else could remain unchanged while I crumbled inside. Tom met me later that afternoon at the park, away from curious eyes. We sat on a bench beneath the old elm tree. I handed him a small envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "Payment for what's next." Tom opened the envelope, peeked inside, and closed it again. "I told you I'd do this as a favor. And I'm telling you I want to pay. I need this to be official, cold, clean." Tom nodded. "What's the plan?" "Step 1, continue surveillance. I wanted to catch them together again, this time somewhere more intimate than a diner. I wanted undeniable evidence. Step 2, record everything, not just audio, video, high definition. I wanted their betrayal burned into digital memory. Step 3, leverage the information, but not immediately. I would wait until I had every piece, until I knew all the names, all the meeting spots, all the messages. Step 4, prepare my message, not to Susan, but to everyone around her, our sons, our neighbors, her bridge club, her church group. I would dismantle the illusion of her perfect life the same way she dismantled our marriage, piece by piece. Tom smiled a little when I explained Step 5, plant the seeds of guilt. Anonymous notes left around the house, photos slipped into drawers, her favorite novel hollowed out with a flash drive inside. Let her wonder how much I knew, let her unravel. And finally, Step 6, the confrontation. But it wouldn't happen at home. No screaming matches, no shattered glass. I would do it where it hurt most, on her birthday, in front of the people she loved. Let her wear shame like a dress. Tom looked at me long and hard. "You've thought this through." "I've had a lot of time to think." He leaned back. "Most guys I know would have just left, maybe torched her stuff on the lawn." "I'm not most guys." "No," he said, "you're not." That night, I began writing the speech I'd give on her birthday. It started simple. 40 years ago, I made a promise. She didn't keep hers. The words came slowly, but each one was a hammer. Truth, raw and unapologetic. Over the next week, Tom followed her movements. He confirmed 3 more meetings, twice at the same diner, once at a hotel off the highway, room 218. He got video, clear as daylight, her laugh, his hand on her back, their kiss in the elevator. Each file he sent was like a nail in the coffin of our life together. I watched the clips in the dark, alone, not out of masochism, but because I needed to see. I needed to witness the death of what I thought we had. Then I began preparing my materials. I printed photos, time-stamped, transcribed conversations, arranged them in a leather binder, the kind you use for board meetings or retirements. And I waited. I made small talk with Susan in the mornings, cooked dinner like always, asked about her book club, the neighbors, the weather. I smiled. I kissed her forehead. She had no idea the man sitting across from her was gone, replaced by someone colder, sharper, calculated. 2 days before her birthday, I told her I was planning something special. Just a little surprise, I said. You deserve it. She beamed. She had no idea what I meant. I invited everyone, family, friends, her pastor, our sons, their wives, neighbors, even Ellen, who had returned from her trip and was confused when I called. It's a surprise, I said. You'll want to be there. The stage was set. The house was spotless on the morning of her birthday. I woke up before dawn, quietly setting the table, arranging flowers, her favorites, peonies and white roses. Balloons floated near the ceiling. The dining room glowed with string lights. To the outside world, it looked like the celebration of a devoted husband. But every detail had a purpose. Each plate placement, each napkin fold, was part of the stage I had been crafting for weeks. The guests thought they were coming for cake and memories. But I had something far more unforgettable planned. I wore my best suit, the one I hadn't put on since our eldest son's wedding. It still fit, barely. My hands were steady as I buttoned the cuffs. I stared into the mirror longer than usual. I didn't recognize the man staring back, but I respected him. He was no longer a fool. Susan came downstairs in a pale blue dress. I remember buying it for her 3 birthdays ago. She looked beautiful. That hurt in a way I can't explain. She smiled and kissed my cheek. You're really pulling out all the stops this year, she said. I wanted it to be unforgettable, I replied. By noon, the guests began arriving. Laughter filled the house. Neighbors hugged. Friends brought bottles of wine. Our sons came with their wives and children. Susan beamed. She floated through the crowd like a queen, greeting each person with warmth. No one suspected a thing. I mingled. I smiled. I even laughed at old jokes I'd heard a dozen times, but inside I was a coil of nerves, tightly wound. The moment was coming. Tom was there too, quiet in the corner, camera embedded in his jacket. He was capturing everything, for my records, for clarity, for her legacy. The cake arrived at 2 p.m., 3 layers, vanilla with raspberry filling, her favorite. I gathered everyone in the living room. The lights dimmed. I clinked my glass. Everyone, I began, thank you for coming to celebrate this beautiful woman's birthday. 40 years ago, I married Susan. I loved her with everything I had. She smiled, eyes glistening. I believed we built something rare, something sacred. But recently, I discovered something else. The room shifted, faces tensed, Susan's smile faded. I found out my wife has been seeing another man for months, maybe longer. Gasps, a few murmured protests. Someone dropped a glass. I reached beneath the side table and pulled out a small black box. Inside, the binder Tom and I had assembled. photos, audio files, transcripts, proof. I handed it to our eldest son. "This is the truth," I said. "Make of it what you will." Susan tried to speak, but I held up my hand. "Let me finish. You all know her as kind, faithful, loyal, but there's another side, a truth she kept hidden from all of us." Tears welled in her eyes. She shook her head, tried to reach for me. I stepped back. "I don't do this out of anger," I said. "I do this because I deserve better, because our family deserves the truth, and because this facade ends today." Silence. No one moved. Even the children seemed frozen. Then I walked to the door, picked up my suitcase, and turned to face her one last time. "I'll be staying at the lake house. Don't call. Don't follow." Her knees buckled. She collapsed into the chair, and I walked out. Outside the sun was warm. A light breeze rustled the trees. Birds chirped. It felt unreal, how normal the world was, as if it hadn't just shattered behind me. I got in the car and drove. I didn't even know where I was going at first. I ended up on the old road by the river where we used to walk when we were young. I parked and sat there for hours, watching the water flow, thinking, had I done the right thing? Did it matter? That night at the lake house, I unpacked, sat in silence, made a cup of tea, and for the first time in weeks, I slept, alone, at peace, to be continued. The days following Susan's visit passed slowly, almost rhythmically, like waves against the shore. Each morning I woke to the call of loons on the lake, brewed a single cup of coffee, and sat on the porch wrapped in an old flannel blanket. There was peace in the quiet, but it was an unfamiliar peace, one that came with the strange sensation of being unanchored. After 40 years of being someone's husband, I was alone, and I was beginning to learn what that really meant. I started spending my days walking the woods around the lake. I rediscovered old fishing spots, trails I had forgotten. I began journaling each night, sometimes for hours, letting my thoughts bleed out of me. The grief, the resentment, the guilt, the questions. Some pages were angry, others tender. A few were just blank. But writing made things real, and in a way, it began to rebuild me. Our sons called, Paul and Matthew. They were angry at first, confused, but they listened. I sent them copies of the binder, redacted where necessary. We had long, difficult conversations. I told them the truth, not just about Susan, but about me, the ways I had failed her too, the years we had drifted slowly, silently. I didn't excuse her, but I understood the cracks. And then, one rainy Tuesday, a letter arrived. It was from Susan, no envelope, just folded paper left at the cabin's doorstep in her handwriting. I stared at it for over an hour before I opened it. She wrote about her loneliness, about how she felt like a ghost in her own home. She admitted her mistake, described her shame. But most of all, she talked about me, how I had become so solid, so constant, that she forgot I was still a man, still vulnerable. She said she had started therapy, alone, that she had told the truth to our pastor, that she had resigned from her book club, that she was changing, not to win me back, but to face herself. The letter ended with a single sentence. I don't expect forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life living in truth, whether you're beside me or not. I folded it carefully and tucked it into the back of my journal. That evening I stared at the lake and thought about legacy. What do we leave behind when our story ends? Not the hurt, not the betrayal, but the choices we make afterward. I had choices. I could stay here forever, wrapped in my silence and self-righteousness. Or I could return, not to the marriage, but to the world, to life, to newness. So I started small. I volunteered at the local library, helped catalog history books, met a widower named Margaret who brought homemade cookies every Thursday. I started going to the local community center, playing cards, talking to men my age, many with stories not unlike mine. And one night, sitting around a campfire with Tom and two other veterans, I told my story, start to finish. No bitterness, no spin, just the facts. And when I finished, one of the men, quiet, weathered, looked at me and said, "Sounds like you're finally living your own life." That stuck with me. So when Susan called again, this time not to plead but to ask if we could talk, just talk, I said yes. We met at a park, neutral ground. She looked older. So did I. We spoke for hours, not about the past, but about the now, our kids, the grandkids, her garden, my reading list. It felt simple. When she stood to leave, she smiled sadly. This was good. It was, I agreed. She looked at me, hesitating. Do you think there's ever a way back? I looked out over the hills. Maybe not to what we had, but maybe to something better, something honest. We didn't make promises, we didn't hold hands, but we left with peace. And now, as I sit at the lake house porch, writing the final words in my journal, I know this. This story began with betrayal, but it ends with growth, because life doesn't stop after heartbreak. It begins again, if you let it.